Welcome to Brewers Daily. I'm your host, Dave Gasper. Offseason is continuing here as we're getting closer and closer to Christmas, and soon we will be getting to spring training and opening day. Cannot wait for that day, but still lots to get done before then. I want to get to another free agent and potential trade target here for the Milwaukee Brewers on the show today. And I also want to dig into the Brewers' infield depth here because on the last show we talked about the Brewers' pitching depth and ran down what they had as options for the rotation, for the bullpen. And today I want to look at the infield. So looking at this group, because this is a spot that kind of concerns me a little bit when it comes to the depth that the Brewers have here. Just overall, looking at the talent that they have here at first base, you got Andrew Vaughn as your clear starter there, Jake Bauers as your backup, and those guys might work in somewhat of a platoon. Getting Jake Bauers, as the lefty in there, Andrew Vaughn as the right-handed hitter. But even though Vaughn, being the righty in the platoon, he would face a lot more lefties, which is the short side of the platoon. He still would be getting the bulk of the everyday at bats at first base, I would imagine. So those are your top two guys, and you also have Tyler Black on the 40-man roster as well. What the future holds for Tyler Black is really up in the air. I don't think his future is much in the Brewers organization, but he's still there. He's still on the 40-man roster, and first base is really kind of where he fits defensively. He has played second base. He has played third, but he's not particularly good at either of those positions. Pat Murphy has almost just outright rejected the idea of Tyler Black playing third base because he's just simply not good enough over there. Second base is maybe where he's a bit better, but that's currently handled by Bryce Terang, so there's really kind of no room for him there. So second base, Bryce Terang, obviously your incumbent starter there. Andrew Monasterio as your backup at shortstop. Joey Ortiz starting shortstop still, despite what Brewers fans may say about him, despite your hesitations about Joey Ortiz. He is the starting shortstop on this team right now. Andrew Monasterio, the backup there as well as your primary utility infielder. Then a third base, Caleb Durbin, Monasterio backing up there again, and Anthony Siegler as an option there as well. So that's really kind of where the infield depth currently stands. And it's a little concerning to me, the lack of depth behind the starters. Monasterio, I think, is a solid utility infielder. I'd like a little bit more potential help for this group, in terms of maybe a veteran in there, or at least another option on the 40-man that the Brewers can turn to in case someone gets hurt, in case something happens, in case there's poor production maybe, somewhere else that you can maybe turn in case there are issues. Because you're likely only going to be carrying 6 infielders on the 26-man roster as the 2026 season is ongoing, because you're likely going to have 5 outfielders, given the depth that the Brewers have there, 2 catchers, and that's going to leave just 6 infielders. And, one of them's going to be your backup first baseman in Bauers, and the other one's going to be your utility guy in Mona. If anything happens, the Brewers are going to be left severely thin in terms of options there in that infield. So I'd like to see them, try and bring in a little bit of help for that group. There's some thoughts maybe you could upgrade off of Caleb Durbin, even though he had a great season. I know that there are plenty of people who want to upgrade off Joey Ortiz, but as I've talked about on previous Brewers dailies, with the shortstop prospects that the Brewers have, 1, 2, and 3 in their system, and how they're in AAA, AA, and High A this next season, I think with all those guys coming up, that the Brewers aren't really going to be making any sort of long-term investments at shortstop. And one of the potential short-term stopgaps at shortstop, Ha-Seong Kim, just re-signed with the Atlanta Braves for $20 million. So he's off the market, and that was really kind of your only starting caliber shortstop that you could get on a short-term deal. And he's gone. He's not coming to Milwaukee. So that leaves the infield depth a little thin, I think. So I'd like to see them maybe make an addition there. One place they could look is via trade here, and we're seeing a rumor, coming around here that the Mets are looking to potentially trade Mark Vientos. Now, Vientos is someone who, has really come on in the last couple of years, proven to be a big power hitter. As we talk about how the Brewers need some more power, Mark Vientos would certainly supply some. He would be a great addition, to the lineup in terms of adding some power to that group. And, the Mets, they're doing a real roster makeover over there with David Stearns, and they're willing to discuss Vientos in trades is what the word around the league is right now. So that could be something the Brewers get themselves involved in. But looking at it further, as you can look offensively at the numbers here for Mark Vientos. I mean, he can have some really good time numbers here if you really want to focus on him. I mean, this past season he had 17 home runs. Uh, in his career though, I mean, in 2024 he had 27 home runs, a career high for him. Had a great season in 2024. Was worth over 3 wins above replacement. Had 266. Had an 837 OPS, a 134 OPS plus. Really kind of looked like a building block in the middle of the lineup. Stepped back quite a bit this year. Um, and not only did he step back offensively, him at third base was a major step back defensively. He really struggled at third base on defense. And that would probably be the spot where you'd most likely see him on the Brewers because, first base, I really think the Brewers are committed to giving Andrew Vaughn that full look. I mean, they basically pushed Rhys Hoskins out the door for him at the end of the year. So Vaughn is likely going to be pretty entrenched as that guy. So if the Brewers were to get a guy like Vientos, I think defensively, the Brewers would be much happier putting him at first base. But I think with what they have in Vaughn and Bowers, I don't think the Brewers are really necessarily looking to add a first baseman. And with Vientos and what he is defensively at third, which is god awful, I don't really see the Brewers willing to give up much in order to get him. I don't see him being someone that the Brewers want to pay. Now, I know his name's being, bandied about in trade rumors here, but and the Brewers potentially working with the Mets on some trades here. I mean, potentially for Trevor McGill, potentially for Freddie Peralta. I mean, Vientos could be a centerpiece in a trade for either one of those guys. If you're looking at what the Brewers could get in return for some major league ready help. Vientos is certainly that. He's got a couple years of experience already, so he wouldn't have the full slate of MLB control that the Brewers like to target. But I think with that defense, the Brewers are going to say, you know what, we'll pass on Mark Vientos. We're going to look for something else if we're going to make a deal work here with the Mets. I think it doesn't make sense because the Brewers prioritize defense. Even though he can be a big bopper in the lineup, I think the Brewers are just simply going to pass because of that defense. That's what they've done numerous times in the past. They prioritize having a good glove in the infield. They just got Angel Serpa, for his ground ball ability because they trust their infield defense. They love it that much. They trust it that much. They know it's that good. It is far too big of a priority for them. Which brings me to a free agent profile as well, which is another name that Brewers fans really, really wanted over the summer, and that's Eugenio Suarez. He's still out there on the free agent market. The Brewers didn't end up getting him at the trade deadline, obviously. He ends up going to Seattle, to the Mariners, and kind of struggled there after making the turn. I mean, he was on a historic pace with the Diamondbacks before the trade. And then he really kind of dropped off for a bit after that, but then still had some big hits for them in their playoff run. But Suarez is out there again, so that's someone that could make some sense for the Brewers to look at again as well if they really wanted to, because now you don't have to give up any sort of prospects along with it. So that's something that the Brewers certainly enjoy. But I think with Suarez, it's going to be somewhat similar to Vientos because Suarez defensively really, really struggles. He's not a good defensive third baseman. And the priority for the Brewers in the infield, again, is going to be that kind of a defense. So even though Suarez can bring pop, he can bring power, and he is going to get quite a decent sized contract, I would imagine. Suarez is basically, in the Brewers' eyes, he's likely more of a DH, right? Just because his defense at his position is so poor, it's not worth it for them to trot him out there. They would much rather trot out a Caleb Durbin, even though he's not going to supply as much power. I think they would much rather trot a Durbin out there than an Eugenio Suarez. Suarez, again, as a DH, I think he'd be a very, very fine addition. Problem is, you already have Christian Yelich making $26 million a year to essentially be your DH. So that spot's already filled for this team. So if you're holding out hope for Eugenio Suarez on the Brewers again this offseason, like you were during the summer, I hate to break it to you, but you're probably going to end up being disappointed. He's someone who, again, can supply a ton of power, but I think with his issues on the defensive side of the ball, with the contract he's going to end up commanding, I don't think the Brewers are going to be involved heavily in Eugenio Suarez's market at all. It just doesn't seem to be a direction that they're going to end up going in because, again, that defense is such a priority. And whatever they do for their infield depth, if they're going to bring someone in over Caleb Durbin, I don't see them doing it with someone like Eugenio Suarez. I think they, I think if they were going to do it, they'd more likely do it with someone like Nolan Arenado rather than an Eugenio Suarez. Even though Nolan Arenado is clearly on a decline, especially offensively, he is clearly on a decline. But his glove is so elite at the position that even though it may be declining a little bit, his glove is still good. That they would put him out there at third base every single day, even though, again, the bat may be a liability at this point in his career. They would rather do that than get someone like Suarez, who may be more of a addition with the bat, but is such a detraction with the glove. It just doesn't make as much sense for them. So I'm sorry if you're holding out hope again for Eugenio Suarez, but I would not be expecting that this offseason at all. Um, where Brewers rumors, currently stand. There's still, potentially Freddie Peralta and Trevor McGill on the move here. Those are the big buzzy names that are, being bandied about over here. I know it's a lot of alliterations, a lot of B words all in a row, but still, the Brewers are going to be considering all of those offers. A lot of teams are still going to be calling there about Freddie Peralta. We haven't really seen the starting pitching market fully move yet. We saw Dylan Cease go. We're seeing some more of these, kind of mid-tier relievers go. We just saw Drew Pomeranz, Jordan Romano end up getting signed out there in Los Angeles. So the relief market is still moving. So maybe Trevor McGill could still end up happening on the move at some point here. We could see the Brewers kind of dive in, maybe make a free agent signing for the bullpen. We could see that as a possibility. That all could be happening here. We could see them jump in as a backup catcher at some point. I still think they're going to want a third catcher in that 40-man roster behind Jefferson Carroll, or maybe even in front of Jefferson Carroll. I think that's very much still in play here for Matt Arnold. So we'll see what they end up getting across the finish line here, because again, before Christmas here, a lot of the things that these GMs and agents have in place or have been talking about, if they've gotten any sort of decently far along in these talks, they're going to want to try to get it across the finish line before Christmas, if at all possible. So we could be seeing a flurry of activity here in a couple of days. And as always, we will have you covered here for analysis and breakdown of any of the moves here on Brewers Daily, and also on my Twitter account at dgasper24. Be sure to follow me on there and subscribe to the YouTube channel here, Brewers Daily, so you get notified every single time a new episode drops. And that way you never miss a single one, never miss a single bit of Brewers news, because we will cover it all every single day, Monday through Friday here. Thank you for listening. Again, be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you again next time for another episode of Brewers Daily.